Hey everyone, welcome back to the Cheap channel, the channel dedicated to all things cheap in the world of fragrances. And if you have been in this hobby of collecting fragrances or enjoying them for any amount of time, you've no doubt developed your own taste. And there's a lot of people who just get into it and they start finding out what they like and what they don't like. But for majority of people, they really like those sweet scents, especially those that are sweet and fresh. That seems to be the best combo. But majority of people, especially women, love sweet fragrances on both them and on guys. It just seems to be a kind of maybe guilty pleasure that you're not supposed to have dessert, you're not supposed to have something that's too sweet, but yet you still want to smell like it. You want to smell like it's something that's delectable, that's seductive, and even to an extent something that's interesting, because we don't naturally smell anything sweet out in nature. So when we do smell something that is sweet, that's fruity, that's candy-like, that's sugary, it's something very different that we a lot of times have an addictive nature to. So today we're going to look at 5 cheapies that cater to those who have that sweet tooth, whether you like something that is mildly sweet, maybe still a little sweeter than what most people like, to something that is extremely sweet that you have to really be into it to really enjoy it. And these are ones that I personally own and have more, and there's a lot of other, maybe even sweeter fragrances than these, but I don't have those on hand. Even my wife has a lot that is very sweet. But again, these are more for the male demographic, things that still have a masculine lean to them that guys can wear easily without smelling too feminine, but you still get to get that little sugary sweetness in there. Starting off with the first one here, we're gonna go from less sweet to the most sweet as far as I'm concerned, again, with what I have in my collection. This is one that is a cologne fragrance. Not a lot of people talk about it, even though it is from a reputable house. It is by Lattafa, and this one is Ajaib Dubai. So there is a female version of this called Ajaib Portrait, which some people may say is actually unisex, but it's a very fruity mango sorbet style of fragrance. I absolutely love it. It's one of my favorite in my wife's collection, but this one is definitely the more masculine release in this small line. This is meant to be a clone of By Kilian's Black Phantom, and what you're going to get out of this is something that is similar to that, but of course with a little different style. This opens up with a very dominant note of saffron, a little spicy. There is a pineapple note in there, but I don't get a lot of fruity sweetness, and it may be that my nose is just more sensitive to that saffron note, and that dominates the fragrance all the way through. But then right behind it, you get a lot of sweetness with like a butterscotch style note, a little bit candy sweet, a little vanillic, almost a little boozy as well, even though the original fragrance has a little more booziness than this one. And then also right with it, you get a coffee note, which I don't get a whole lot of. I get hints of it here and there, adding a little bit more of just a roasted, almost smoky aspect here and there. And then underneath it, you get a lot of woodiness and of course a lot of vanilla, a little bit of an ambery warmth, but overall it is just a spicy, again, candy, butterscotch sweetness. But the sweetness, even though it is a butterscotch style, isn't something that's too out there, too loud. It definitely is the most toned down in that sweet aspect than the rest of the ones here. A very Middle Eastern style to it, especially that saffron. It's something that I think guys would be more comfortable wearing if you want something that has a sweet twist, still has a good bit of maturity and a little mysterious dark aspect to it. This is also one that has about medium performance through and through from both projection and longevity. Nothing that's too loud, but also nothing that you want to spray on a whole lot. As far as seasonality with most of these here, this is going to work better for the cold weather, the fall, winter, and cooler parts of spring. Again, because it doesn't have an overabundance of sweetness, you can even probably wear this in the daytime, especially in the winter where the days are almost as cold as the nights, where it's not going to be something that is too noticeable as like a date night style. It still can be something that's a signature out and about kind of thing, but only if you wear it the right way with the right attitude, because again, it does have a more serious aspect to it. Again, this is the least sweet in the lineup we have here today, but one that is a strong start, and again, one that not a whole lot of people are talking about now. It is this Lattafa. It is Ajaib Dubai. The next one here is going to step up that sweetness a little more, one that's actually talked about a lot more in the fragrance community, especially the cheapy side of fragrances. Even Ash from Gent Sense has talked about this one, and even I've talked about before in a past fall cheapies video. It is by Banana Republic and it is tobacco and tonka bean. So because I have already talked about this one, I'm gonna go through it pretty quickly. This is one that's gonna have a little bit of similarities to Initio's side effect, and the purple color of the bottle kind of gives that away, but especially when you smell it and you look at the note breakdown, it does have a lot of similarities to that fragrance, minus the rum booziness and the cinnamon note that is shared with side effect. This is one that's gonna come across very fruity sweet on the top with a nice Mirabelle plum note, which is a very gorgeous note in men's fragrances that not a lot use, but if you do want to make your fragrance even more sexy and seductive, you're going to put that fruit note in there. And then right behind it, you get a lot of vanillic sweetness, almost syrupy, but more of like a powdery sweetness, which the tonka bean here does contribute to a powdery style sweetness in there. Nothing that's too rubbery. It doesn't have that weird kind of latex feel that a lot of tonka bean notes can have. It's just very powdery, sweet, and then right in the middle you get that tobacco note, being something that's actually a little aromatic, a little herbal. It's not really smoky, it's not really ashy, but it does add that dry tobacco essence, and mixed with that sweetness, it does balance out very, very well. And then that dry down, you get more of that vanillic amber warmth in there. Of course, a lot of that tobacco note still carries through. And there also is an interesting note of coconut in here, which you really don't get. It just adds maybe a tad bit of a creamy sweetness added in with that vanilla and that tonka bean, just to add just a little extra layer of sweetness in there. Overall, the sweetness that's going to be in here is just that vanilla and tonka bean, a little bit of that ambery warmth. It is a step up from the first one, but one that's not going to be overbearing. It's more top and mid note. Some people may say it has like a little bit of a syrupy sweetness to it, but I don't think it's quite that intense. There is another one after this that has more of that aspect. I do think it's just a powdery, fluffy kind of sweetness. One I think that is probably more appropriate for date nights, especially nighttime in the cold weather, in the spring, fall, and winter time, maybe somewhat in the daytime and winter because of that fruity top note in there. And this is also a very nice performer, not anything that's going to be overloaded, but one that, in light of how Banana Republic usually does their fragrances, is way better performing than most of them, with a nice medium projection and longevity overall. It's definitely one that's going to be noticeable, has a great sillage to it in the air, and will last even longer on clothes than on skin, but still extremely nice, very seductive. Again, a step up in sweetness than the first one, but yet not the sweetest one or the most potent that we have in this listing, but one that has a little more complexity, and it's also a little more unisex than anything else we have in this list. Highly recommend it. Of course, everybody else in the cheapie community has already talked about it, but it's for good reason. Again, it is this one here by Banana Republic. It is tobacco and tonka bean. Going to the next one here, which is another step up in sweetness, and it's actually from a company that you would not think would create anything that would be in this listing, which is why it's very surprising when this fragrance was released, and not a lot of people talked about it or gave it the appreciation that I think it deserves, because it's very underrated and a far cry from anything that this company mostly does. It's by Calvin Klein in the Eternity line, and this one is called Eternity for Men Amber Essence. So just like the name says, and even the colorization of the bottle, this is going to be a very ambery, warm fragrance, but it's also very, very sweet. It has a very concise note breakdown, making it a little simple, but even in that simplicity, it is extremely enjoyable. This is one that's going to come across very citric on the top, actually more fresh than you'd expect, with like an Italian mandarin note on the top. A little bit of an orange nuance to it, but it's still very citric, and a nice little pop on the top. And then right behind it, you get a lot of vanillic sweetness. And this is one that's actually going to come across probably overly sweet to most people, almost saccharine style of syrupy sweetness, very thick and viscous, and actually probably a little overbearing and a little harsh even to me personally, but as it dries down is where the real magic happens. It really mellows out. You get a good bit of a deeper sweetness in here, especially compared to the first two, even the Banana Republic one, way deeper underneath sweetness that comes up underneath it with a lot of ambers in here, very warm, a nice benzoin kind of warmth sweetness in there as well. And the vanilla that's in here has a little bit of a menthol kind of effect to it, which would lead you to believe that this is going to be similar to Parfum de Mars Latent, but overall it has a lot of characteristics that differ completely and that are missing from what Latent has itself. This is one I think is way closer to smelling like Prada Luna Rosa Ocean Le Parfum, and even that one is closer to smelling like Layton than this one is. So I say that one is probably in between Layton and this, but this has a good bit of similarities to that. Very modern style of sweetness, very enjoyable. Like I said, the longer it sits and dries down, the more tolerable, the more smooth, rounded out, and like I said, the deeper it gets. This is one that's going to be an amazing performer as well. Very, very loud for that first maybe like hour and a half, 2 hours of the fragrance with a great sillage. And then as it dries down, it quickly gets to be a little more medium, almost medium intimate, but the longevity on it is what makes up for it. It definitely goes well into the night, especially on clothes. It will go as long as you need it to, which I think is what makes this a perfect date night fragrance. It's probably one that you don't want to spray on immediately, then go out and about, because like I said, that opening is a little harsh and a little loud, almost screechy. You definitely want to give a little space and time in between when you spray and when you're about to go out and meet up or go wherever you're going, because as it mellows out, it's going to be something that is, again, more enjoyable and have more of that seductive, alluring facet to it. I think this is completely underrated, completely underappreciated, and then like I said, coming from Calvin Klein and the Eternity line, of all things, it is way out there, far cry from anything that they do. Like I said, the depth and the nuances you get with this are just way above the price point and way above the first impressions that you would get with this overall. And I think it goes without saying that this is one that's going to be meant more for the cold weather, like the nighttime in fall, winter, and maybe even the very, very beginning cool part of spring. You definitely want to wear this probably too much out in the summer unless you're in an air conditioning environment and you go very, very light with the sprays, because again, it does have that very citric opening and it has almost a lightness to it over on the top part, but it quickly gets into that very low sweetness. So just be careful with how much you spray if you are wanting to wear this in warmer weather. But overall, I think cold weather is where this is going to be king. One that is really flying under the radar. So if you do happen to pick this up and wear it, you'll definitely be wearing something that probably not anyone out there is thinking about using. But again, one that I highly recommend and probably one of my more favorites out of the whole list here. It is by Calvin Klein and it is Eternity Amber Essence. Now going on to the next one here, and it's not really one that's going to be a huge step up in sweetness from Amber Essence. It's just the style of sweetness that this is. It's one that is very different. It's a hyped cheapie in the fragrance community, has been forever, ever since it came out. Has a lot of great flanges that came in after it, but I think this is one that probably is the most bought out of all of them. It is by Salvatore Ferragamo, and it is Uomo. So there's not really much I can say about this that hasn't been said already, so I'm just going to go through it a little quicker than I usually do. This is one that's going to come across smelling very fresh and Broxton, citric on the top, a little brighter than what you'd expect, especially out of things that you've heard about this fragrance. But now as it goes into that mid very, very quickly, you get a lot of vanillic, ambery, warm sweetness, and actually a little bit of a bitter style sweetness, which is a stark contrast to everything else we smelled here. Probably gonna be more akin to even the first one we talked about, which was that Ajaya Dubai, because it does have a little bit of what people may say is a tiramisu style of sweetness and profile, almost a gourmand, which is strange because it doesn't have a chocolate note or any cacao or especially coffee, but yet it comes across smelling like a dessert style of sweetness, a little bit syrupy. And to be honest, when I first got this fragrance in and sprayed it, the style of sweetness almost smelled like melted burning plastic to me. But after smelling this again, almost a whole year after I got it, it's definitely smoothed out a lot more, smells a lot richer, a lot smoother, a lot rounder, and even something that smells way closer to what people are saying that they get with this and how they experience it. And as it continues to dry down, you keep that vanillic sweetness, that ambery warmth, almost benzoin style, and you get a lot of woodiness in here, and that ambroxan also continues to dry down with it, keeping it a little ambery but fresh through and through. And as far as performance, I've gotten varied here and there, but overall across the fragrance community, most people consider this a medium loud performer overall in both projection and longevity, that it projects very loudly and dries down, being something that stays medium, lasting for a good bit. And personally, I've gotten here and there, so I'll just say it's definitely strong medium, maybe a tad bit over, depending on, again, how you wear it and how much you spray and your skin chemistry and on clothes and all that kind of jazz. But overall, it's an amazing fragrance, one that's going to be especially more for the fall, winter, and a little bit in that cooler spring. And I would even say that you can wear this in the daytime in fall and winter just as easily at night for dates and whatnot. It's a good signature scent out and about, especially if you like something that is a little more sweet, fresh. Like I said, that ambroxan in here carries a good bit of a freshness along with the citruses and the little fruitiness that is on the top. It has a little lighter opening that dries down, being something that is a more warm and woody. So maybe you can even have this something that you can wear at midday or a little after, and then it will dry down, being something that's a little more deeper as the night goes on. But yeah, absolutely love this one. Fantastic. It's been a hype beast for a reason. I think it still deserves that spot. If you don't have this and you want something that is a gourmand style of sweetness without being too out there, too feminine, this is a great one to go with. Again, it was Salvador Ferragamo, and it is Uomo. Now onto the next one here, and it's the one that I consider to be the sweetest out of all these here, and probably contending with being the sweetest in my whole collection as of now. It is another hype beast in the fragrance community, not just on the cheapie side, but even the mainstream side, that you really can't go anywhere for too long without hearing about this somewhere along the way. It is by the clone company of Off and On, and it is 9 p.m. So again, not really much that I can say about this one that hasn't been said already, so I want to go through this as quickly as I can. This is meant to be a clone of Jean Paul Gaultier's Ultra Male with a little bit of a twist to it, like Off and On does most of the time. This is one that's going to come across on the top with a very, very strong fruitiness, and I know that Ultra Male uses a fruit of pear, but this is actually swapping it up and using a note of apple. Very strong fruits, a little powdery, and then right behind it you get that very noticeable strong vanillic note, which fills in the whole profile of the fragrance from the top to the dry down. It has a good bit of spiciness in here with a noticeable cinnamon note, and then as you start drying down you get a lot more of that muskiness, a little warm ambers, deeper into that spiciness, and a tad bit of a soft woodiness. But again, through and through you are getting that fruity, powdery vanilla note, and actually the way that this comes across to me almost smells like powdered candy, just with the texture that it has to my nose. And even from that top to the mid, there's a little bit of a fresh aspect in there, which actually makes this a little more versatile than most of the ones here. This is one I think you can wear easily either in the day or nighttime from fall, winter, and spring. You could wear it easily out and about casually for date nights. Definitely more playful, not really gonna be for the office or formal gatherings, more for the outgoing, stand out from the crowd, grabbing attention style of attitude and profile. Definitely not something that is subtle. This is the loudest performing out of all these here, and probably one of the stronger fragrances out of my whole collection. It is a very loud projector for majority of the fragrance, and it has a very good longevity, way above an average mark. Extremely good quality, easy to like, a compliment getter. One, because of the scent profile, and two, because it is literally reaching out and grabbing everybody by the nose. But absolutely love this one. One of my favorites from my whole collection. I am always eager to get into the cooler side of the year where I can break this thing out and wear it. I look forward to it every time. It is just really that addictive style of sweetness, both with a little bit of the fresh fruitiness and the deeper spicy vanillic profile to it. It's just absolutely wonderful. Great balance, great blend, great everything. It is really, really good. Highly recommend this one. If you've heard about this one forever and you haven't gotten it because you're a little afraid of how sweet it can be, trust me, it does have a lot of it, but it bounces out very well, and you'll be surprised to think with how addictive and how easy to wear as well that this really is. Again, it is by Off and On, and it is 9 p.m. And there you go, guys, 5 cheapies I think will work great for those of you out there who have that sweet tooth. You want something that is a little sweeter than the rest of the average things out there, but yet you want to do it for a good budget. Any of these would work great for you. Some of them more for the nighttime, some of them more for the daytime, some work great for both, and maybe even something in there work great for even the warmer sides of the year, as long as you know how to do it within reason. Again, all of these should be pretty available and very good price. Sometimes at online discounters, sometimes at rack stores. You just have to look around and see where you can get the best price. But the quality, performance, and overall enjoyability definitely definitely far outweigh the price point that you can find these at. If you have any of these here, or you've looked at getting them, or you have questions about them, or maybe you see them, you're like, hey, I think if you like that, you like this instead, let me know what you think down in the comments below. Your comments, your questions, or things you just want to say and talk about in general, I'd love to hear about it and respond back to you in the comments below. And if you're watching this video and you like what you've seen here, and maybe it's even helped you out a little bit on making a decision on what to get here, please consider giving the video a like and a thumbs up. Let me know to keep making this content and to keep making these more unique, cater to a certain kind of topic or maybe a certain kind of fragrance, and I can keep making things just like this in the future. And as usual, if you're watching this video and you're not subscribed to the channel, but you do like what you've seen here or what you've seen elsewhere on the channel, I encourage you to please consider supporting this channel by subscribing and hitting the notification bell so you can see all the other things that I'm working on in the background to bring out to you guys for you all to enjoy. I'd love for you to be right along with me on this cheap and inexpensive fragrance journey, and hey, maybe I can even help you discover something new along the way. And as always, guys, that's all I have for today's video. Again, thank them. And as always, guys, that's all I have for today's video. Again, thank you for being here and for watching. I really do appreciate it, and I hope that you enjoyed it. And I'll see all of you again in the next video. Be blessed.